Hello students, this is the first part of series of videos presenting Telangana's budget for you. In this video, I am going to explain you the introduction and gross state domestic product of Telangana. Now, coming to the introduction, the state government has presented a massive 2.56 lakh crore budget for the next financial year 22-23 with a heavy accent on welfare of different sections of society. Now, the important point you have to note here is the budget presented in the last fiscal year was 2.36 lakh crores, which was much lower than the 2.56 lakh crore budget presented this year. So there is a clear increase in the budget allocated to Telangana by the Telangana government for the coming fiscal. So in this video, or in the coming series of video, I will not only explain you the facts and figures that were presented in the budget, but I will also stress upon those areas which are very important to the examination. Now, the budget presented by the Minister of Finance is the last full-fledged budget in the current tenure of the TRS government. Now, gross domestic product. What is gross domestic product? The total value of goods and services produced and sold within a territory is called gross domestic product. Now, when GDP is calculated for states, it is called gross state domestic product. Now, if we look at the figure here, the GDP consists of personal and public consumption, government expenditures, public and private investment plus net exports. Net exports means exports minus imports. If you export a value worth 100 rupees and you import goods or services worth 50 rupees, then the net export will be 100 minus 50, which is 50. So this 50 will be added to these amount to calculate GDP. Now, the two most important points that you need to remember here is the GST of Telangana pegged at 11 lakh crore for the last fiscal year with a growth rate of 19.1% against national growth rate of 8.9%. So, the first important point here is the GSTP of Telangana has improved from last fiscal. In the previous year, it was 9 lakhs crore rupees and this year it is 11 lakh crore rupees. So there is a clear improvement in gross state domestic product. And the second point and the most important point here is the GSTP of Telangana is higher than the gross domestic product growth rate of India. Again, the growth rate of Telangana for the past 2021-22 is 19.1% against the GDP growth rate of 8.9%. So the GDP or growth rate of Telangana is much higher than the growth rate of India. Now, if we compare the GDP or gross state domestic product of Telangana while formation, the GDP has increased from 4.5 lakh crore rupees to 11.5 lakh crore, which is a significant amount of improvement. The state's GDP growth has been consistently higher than the national GDP growth since 2015-16. So this improvement or this increased growth rate of Telangana is not just for this year, but it had been consistently higher than the India's GDP since 2015-16. In 2015-16, the GDP of Telangana was 9.2% when compared to 7.57% that is GDP of India. So since then, GDP of Telangana has been higher than the GDP of India. So there was a negative growth last fiscal at the national level as well as in several states due to COVID pandemic. But Telangana registered a positive growth rate of 2.2% during this period. So at national level and even many states had recorded negative growth rate because of COVID pandemic, but Telangana is one of the few states which recorded a positive economic growth. Here I need to mention an example here. A global scenario where all the countries have recorded negative growth, China is the only nation that recorded positive growth even during COVID pandemic. So similarly, Telangana is one of the few states in our country that recorded positive growth rate. Now, the state's contribution to country's GDP improved from 4.06% to 4.97%. So, this improvement from 4.06% in 2014-15 to 4.97% in 2021-22 is almost 1% improvement. So, Telangana is the only state whose contribution to the national economy has grown by almost 1%. Now, states like Haryana, Gujarat, Karnataka, and Telangana have emerged as the states with highest growth in gross domestic product over the last 4 financial years, surpassing that of the nation as a whole. So these states' growth rate was more than the growth rate of nation, and these are the points that you can use while writing Group 1 mains answers. So this point is both from Group 1 and Group 2 perspective. You need to notice points. Now, per capita income. What is per capita income? It is total income of area divided by total population. Now, per capita income of Telangana for this year or for the year 2021-22 was 2,78,833 rupees with an 18.8% growth rate against the national average of 18.1%. So, apart from GDP, per capita income of Telangana is higher than the per capita income of India, and the growth rate of per capita income of Telangana is also higher than the growth rate of per capita income of India. In 2020-21, the per capita income for Telangana was 2,37,000, one of the strongest economic indicators of the well-being of a population. It was 1.84 times that of the national PCI. So even in the last fiscal, the per capita income of Telangana was much higher than the national per capita income. Now, let us end this video by looking into one sample question. The GST growth of Telangana is lower than the GDP growth of India. This statement is false because the growth rate of Telangana is higher than the GDP growth of India. Now, in previous fiscal, GST of Telangana is higher than the GDP of India, which is true. The state's contribution to the country's GDP improved from 4.06% in 2014-15 to 4.97% in 2021-22. This statement is also correct. So the correct option is B, that is 2 and 3. Because since 2015-16, the growth rate of Telangana is much higher than the growth rate of GDP of India. So this brings the end of this video. We'll post more videos on Telangana budget. Thank you. Happy studying.